Looks like Bosmopar's game is getting started against Kalemero here. So he's on a 5-minute
Ooh.
delay, so we will be discussing his hand. Uh, Seeing this opening, we see that it looks like, and by looks like, we're definitely seeing Sapphire Wild, which I'm down with.
Yeah,
Good
the
luck
other
and have
exciting
fun.
thing is look at that champion. That's a champion we don't see real often in Constructed.
Bertram? No, we see Bertram all the time, JJ.
Not
Um,
in, not
oh,
Bosmopar.
oh,
Talk about his
oh, no, I
opponent.
see it. His opponent is playing Tetsit. So Tetsit versus Bertram, but an interesting the Sapphire Wild version of the Sapphire dominated meta, not exactly the common situation to be in. We'll see what the Tetsit player leads off with here. Kalemero, Shard of Innovation, playing Sapphire Ruby, kind of hinting at the fact that he is playing probably a version of the Sapphire Ruby deck list that a couple of people 4-0'd in the recent VIP tournament. Yeah, it's likely the Azurfate Tetsit deck. On the list of people who 4-0'd with that deck in the recent VIP tournament, Jadeem Jedi here with me, and myself. So the power level of that deck, at least a little bit up there.
Yeah, it's fairly good, and more importantly, it's something that's different that we haven't seen a lot of in this tournament.
All right, so Sight of the Sun hitting the board. This 1/2 Coyotal unique legendary can be exhausted to refresh your resources for the turn, and Calamaro just sends that back to the hand with a time ripple right away. Uh, doesn't seem to bother Bosmopar all that much. Does slow down the ability to use Sight of Sun though, because exhaust abilities can't be activated while Troop Trauma's up.
We do see a tunnel here from Kalemero. It does have Ruby and Sapphire, so not 100% sure which one that is there. So this time Bosmopar plays a shard, does not replay the Sight of the Sun though, decides to go ahead and get the Eldritch Dreamer online, presumably with the Sapphire of Mind to draw a card whenever he deals damage. So now we see another shard drop from Kalemero.
Which puts him at 4, which is where the deck needs to be to start. But he tunnels another troop. Interesting here. With the deck list available on the VIP, we have to wonder if Bosmopar has those open and is trying to figure out what these could be. Draws a Shard of Instinct here. Gonna throw that onto the board, likely get his second Wild Threshold online. No, doesn't need a second Wild Threshold, so not playing any dual wild cards there. Maybe kind of tipping his hand a little bit there by choosing Sapphire. Uh, I wonder if the deck has peaks or something else. Chooses not to swing in with Eldritch Dreamer.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of playing this deck here. Sometimes, even if you're not necessarily playing Fisher-Smith, you might have your opponent play around it.
So the Fisher-Smith surfacing. Didn't manage to trick that Eldritch Dreamer into a swing here.
So we do see the
Crackling
Crackling
Bolt.
Ooh.
That's 3 damage that will destroy Sight of Sun. Chooses to leave Eldritch Dreamer on the board. Wonder if the Fisher-Smith will swing in here. He does. Now, you have to imagine, yeah, there's no way that Enro could really justify that block there, even if he didn't think that Calamaro had a burn or some other action to deal that last point of damage.
Yeah, I almost wondered if we were going to see a follow-up Fisher-Smith there with killing the Sight of the Sun, but that's not what we got there from Kalemero.
Alright, so Eldritch Dreamer swings in. Just going to try to draw that card. Looks like it will deal the 3 damage. Enrofenrir will draw a card, finds another Wild Shard, and in addition is going to activate Zodiac Divination here. We'll draw 3 cards, and all of those cards will have their cost reduced by 1. Looks like a fairly decent pull altogether. Still has Two uses of his charge power up. Chooses not to put the 1/1 defensive worker bot onto the board to get in the way of Fisher Smith. Perhaps not worried about that damage. Now, the counters on the tunneled troop on Kalemero's side of the board go up to 3 at the beginning of his turn, pretty much signaling in this meta, I would say that that's Reese. And down comes the Azurfate Sorceress, which is
Yeah.
socketed with speed and direct damage, so it will deal 2 damage. The Tetsuit charge power is activated, and it's a big one. It becomes a
Oh, buddy.
7/7 rock elemental, which will get inspired by the Azurfate. Both have speed. That's the end of the game right there. No worker bot, no worker bot locking down this game. Two uses of his charge power available. Bosmapar chooses to save them for some reason, and it costs him the game. Game one of round one. Uh,
This is why this deck is so much fun to play because like Bosmapar by all rights looked like he was in great shape there. He had a
oh yeah,
dreamer, he was attacking and drawing, and he was at 18 health. And then all of a sudden, the next turn he's just dead because now granted, his
that was a
opponent got a little
really
bit
lucky
lucky.
touch pull. Yeah.
Yeah, like that was a big rock elemental. It's not usually a 7/7, but that is like the swingy power that Azure Fate with the rock elemental can do for you. So that is why this deck is definitely a lot of fun to watch.
The speed, in particular, the speed in the Azurfate Sorceress turning out to be the powerful matter there. There
Yep.
are a lot of different options for what you can put as that minor gem, and a lot of people, at least within my team, like to debate between speed and play as a quick action. Because playing the Azurfate as a quick action allows you to sneak it behind the enemy lines. Oh, I played it at the end of their turn, so now they either have to deal with it with their resources on their turn, leaving me free to do whatever on my turn, or I need to, uh, you know, need to socket it with speed so that I can get all that extra damage through like that. Nifty, you won game one, but the game didn't. Yeah, no, in the Proving Grounds, you won't go to reserves. You need to go to your card manager, use your reserves there. And what we would suggest is use the save as function to, uh, like, once you've made your reserves changes, instead of clicking save deck, use save as and give it a different name, and then challenge your opponent in the Proving Grounds with that new deck. That way, you always have your regular deck up. Yeah, it looks like there's quite a few no-shows for this first round, guys. Just make sure you uh, message FiveShards in game about what's going on, and they will get that dealt with as soon as possible.
All right. Looks like Bosmapar is done with his reserves changes. Should see him getting ready to start up the next game. You don't see a button on Battlefy to post your result. Yeah, give it a try to refresh the page. If that doesn't work for you, then let us know still. But it should work.
Looks like Bosmopar has found Calamaro in the deck building.
To say, for the people who are mentioning it, I'm looking. I do see a couple people that have reported their matches here already. Is
Yeah,
too
I
low.
mean,
So
you guys just try refreshing Battlefy. I know it's kind of annoying that you have to do that, but
yeah.
like, it really does like update it. There's no reason you shouldn't have the red update button at this point. I can see it on my side. Well, I wonder if there might be something set.
All right. Well, we see the next game
Yeah.
starting here.
Don't stress too much about the red button not showing up, guys. It might be something on our end. So if it doesn't show up for now, just remember you shouldn't forget the results of your match too quickly. Game two, firing up. Another strong opening hand by the looks of it for Bosmopar. A little bit slow, but his opponent does mull down to 6, so it looks a little bit better in that regards.
I do think most of these are pretty good here in this matchup. There's just the one card that I thought maybe would come out, but
You know,
overall, this does look like a really good hand.
I think Bosmopar unintentionally putting himself at a serious disadvantage here, not wrapping his deck in sleeves. Those digital cards will start to accumulate dust, and as we all know, dirty cards are not as good.
Man, I must have so many dirty digital cards then. I'm a bad unsleeved player.
So we see a second Sapphire from Bosmopar. Back onto Kalemaro's side, he's laid down one Ruby threshold already. We'll see if he follows it up with a Sapphire, and he does. Any turn to play, no, nothing being tunneled, nothing coming down onto the board. So it swings back on to Enrofenrir's side of the board. I'm just going to play a wild shard and go, I suppose. Still not putting that charge bot down onto the board. Not afraid of the potential of being destroyed in one turn again, although that would be near impossible here.
Yeah, it's pretty tough to threaten lethal on the third turn there. I don't think the deck is even capable of doing it. But sometimes on the fourth turn. Here we see an Eldritch Dreamer play for Bosmopar. Does have both of his thresholds already. Kalemero playing a Ruby Sapphire, has 2 Ruby and 2 Sapphire here now.
Once again, reaching that fourth resource is probably the most important thing for that deck. Time Ripple being used here to push the Eldritch Dreamer back to hand, which will, of course, delay Enrofenrir's turn. Now, does hit his fifth resource. Both players just kind of curving out with resources fairly well. Lays down that Eldritch Dreamer and says go yet again. We have to wonder if Calamaro has another way to deal with the Dreamer. Still only 5 cards in hand, did mulligan. He grabs the 6th one at the start of his turn. Not at the charges necessary for his charge power yet. Tunnels a troop and doesn't play a shard this turn. A little bit interesting. Now, if that is me on the other side of the board, I don't think I can swing into that. With the potential of that being a Fishersmith, you have to wonder just how willing Bosmopar will be to maybe call a bluff, because it's still there's potential that that's Reese, which it was last game.
Right. Yeah, it depends on how Kalemero decided to go with the reserve plan here. Sometimes you might take it out, but see here that it is Fisher-Smith this time.
Yep, so choosing not to swing was the correct play there.
It's the beauty of the tunnel mechanic, especially when you have multiple good tunnelers. Can't be sure exactly which one you're going to see. Do see an Azure Fate from Kalemero this time, but no swing from either troop. So now, with it going back to Bosmopar and seeing this hand, it's looking pretty good for him. Seems fairly likely that Bosmopar is just going to run away with this one, actually. So we have the 2 unblockable Dreamers attacking in. They do connect and draw 2 cards. Bosmopar plays a Mastery of Time to take an additional turn. So here, we see Bosmopar take the next turn and attack with both Dreamers again.
And this is the scary part if you're sitting on Calamaro's side of the board. This is the potential that Sapphire offers not maybe not necessarily at all Sapphire Wild. The Wild here not necessarily changing what is or isn't happening, but we see another Mastery of Time played. Another 6 damage will come through next turn, and it all really comes down to whether or not another Mastery of Time shows up into Enrofenrir's hand, which we see he doesn't have quite yet, or if he draws one off the Dreamers, or if Kalemero can win, like stabilize the board on the next turn, because this is pretty much going to be the deciding moment. So we don't see a mastery. So Enrofenrir won't be able to shut the game out here. We have to wonder if after last game's nonsense, if he's going to try to slow down the board, and he does by putting the Grolk down. I think as a safety net, I personally would probably use the charge power there, but it appears he chooses not to, which is perfectly fine.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. I would have made the blocker there as well, just in
Just
case.
for the sake. But with Kalemero being 2 charges away from the charge power, there's a lot less threat here. Even Crackling, Wit, or Bolt here to gain another charge don't necessarily provide enough damage to get anything through here. But we do see a Heroic Outlaw, and because Kalemero is at less than 5 health, that Heroic Outlaw has its cost reduced by 6 in hand. But when it enters the board, it still will deal. It will be inspired by the Azure Sorceress because its cost is only reduced in hand. So a 6 cost Heroic Outlaw does get inspired. We'll see if he has. No, he doesn't have another one. So he'll likely swing in here with the Outlaw to see what he can pull through. Grolk could get in front of this. Looks like might not. It's worth noting that this will draw Kalemero another card here, but with 2 resources open, maybe Enra isn't too afraid of this. Had there been more Heroic Outlaws in the weights... Oh. Oh. Okay.
So we
Let's...
see, yeah, we see Bosmopar going for the time ripple here. I like the time ripple on it. I kind of wonder why he didn't do that the first
He's
outlaw.
probably not afraid of the damage that would come through. So this Heroic Outlaw won't be inspired to deal another 4 damage and draw another card. So 5 resources open for Kalemero. Still potential to hold on to this game. There's definitely a card in this situation.
Yep.
Uh, and there it is, yesterday. Well, it won't necessarily win the game for him. It will allow him to hold on, pushing all of those cards back in Enra's hand and his own. Now he will have to choose to discard a card here as he's sitting at 8 cards in hand at the end of turn.
That actually was a small misplay
Oh,
because
he threw
actually
away the Azurfate. Could have waited
with
until the end of turn, then used the yesterday, and then he wouldn't have to discard, I believe, right?
well, what I was gonna say is actually he could just go ahead and replay the outlaws because he is still at 2, so he could have just replayed.
I'm guessing he's banking on winning with the Azurfate play, and that might be a bluff, throwing the other Azurfate into the graveyard here. Like, oh look, you don't have to worry about my Azurfate. I've totally don't got another one. Now, now, one of those heroic outlaws did get inspired by with the speed effect.
Right.
So a lot of options available here for both players. Enro passes his turn with the Dreamer down, has multiple resources and cards available, and now let's see what Kalemero can do. Counter Magic on a Heroic Outlaw does increase its cost to 2. Like, the ability of... Oh, here we see it. The Azure comes down and hits the board, interestingly. Um, anyway, to finish what I was saying, the effect of Heroic Outlaw reduces its cost by 6, not necessarily.
Wow. Wow.
Oh, oh!
Well, guess Azure Fate Rock Elemental is gonna be good enough. 9 direct damage to your face.
What? No.
Now, should
Oh.
point out it didn't end up mattering, but if he needed to end up replaying the outlaw there, the one that was inspired would have still dealt the damage, draw the card, and still have speed, so at least be able to get 8 through on that one. But yeah, just didn't even matter. Just the rock elemental was big enough, and that was
Yeah.
GG already.
Which is what the counter magic was being held for. Like, there's you can't judge him for
Right.
not countering the Azurfate because that wouldn't have killed him unless he got a 9/9 rock elemental, what he specifically needed. Or I suppose an 8/8 would have been acceptable there too. He had to hold
Right.
counter uh, for the heroic outlaw that still had the damage and uh, attack.
Well,
Also, being able to play the heroic outlaw would have drawn him another, at least one card, possibly two more cards. I don't believe he actually just had a safe option there.
I think I think you still end up losing most likely if you wait for the inspired outlaw. Like let's say you let the Azure Fate through. So so that put him to 8. So then the one of the outlaws you know he still has that he can play for free. That one would get 8 because he didn't have a flying blocker already. Um, and if you got the one like if you did have a counter to that one, the second one he could still replay. That would still
Mhm.
be actually that would be 16.
Yeah, as long as the play was Azurfate into not inspired outlaw into inspired outlaw. I don't actually think that with four resources open, there was a correct line